Hi everyone, you're on Laconic John, and this is a retelling of the movie Believer. Enjoy watching. Viewing days went down to the subway and followed the guy in the Jewish cap, in the car hooligan custom, and began to pinch bespectacled guy days, heated his shoes with tights. The guy did not react to this and just went to the nearest station, but Skinhead is not going to get away from him to get away on the street. Days knocked out of the hands of poor guy Book, and after XMLA responded, but without getting a response left the scene of the crime. A gang of skinheads came to a meeting of fascists who had organized a meeting of Kurt Zam and Lena Mobius. That's why I'm a fascist, only such government will satisfy our needs. Lena has a daughter, Carla, whom Days immediately laid eyes on. He took the floor and said that the greatest danger to society is Jews, and they must be gotten rid of, with the FBI or the police. And then she asked who Danny would like to kill first. Mansell, the manager of a large investment bank. Danny even already planned how he would do it. Lena invited the neo-Nazi with friends and a country house. But Curtis is not happy because he renounced anti-Semitism. The millennial Reich didn't last 10 years. You want to go down that road again? On the way back, the gang hit black men, and after a fight, they ended up behind bars. Carla came for Danny personally and bailed him out like many Nazis. The girl's father was in hiding in Argentina, and now he's in a clinic for the mentally ill. At first, she asked Danny to hit her, and then in the morning, the beaten girl woke up Days and asked him to leave. But Curtis had time to notice him. Danny wearing a swastika on his t-shirt and pushing dark-skinned guys. The boy returned home, and among his old things found a school notebook. Danny himself is a Jew, and as a child during a discussion of the Holy Scriptures, he argued with the teacher because he claimed that God is cruel and requires people to Abraham was ready to sacrifice his son Saka. And even though it didn't happen, they became broken nobodies forever. Even then, the Days began to doubt their Jewish identity. The drawer also contained Nazi literature and a gun sister looking after their sick father. How can you wear that? Outraged Linda. You know what it means to your people. It's not my people what to explain his hatred of Jews. Danny can't for the sake of his father. The boy changed his shirt, even though he laughed at the fact that the man doesn't keep Shabbat in the evening. Danny was contacted by a journalist who writes about radical right groups. He wants the boy to share his ideas with him. It turned out that this journalist was Guy Danels, one of the participants in a fascist meeting, according to the racist, white on top black. At the very bottom, Asians, Arabs, and Hispanics, somewhere in the middle, and Judaizers in the middle. In the middle, Judaism is a disease. Jews undermine the traditional foundations of life. They have no roots and no attachment. Because of this, Jews can't plow a field and grow wheat, but they can buy it and resell the mental labor for some reason, said Danny with contempt. They are also inclined to give girls pleasure, and this is a sign of weakness. They are real men powered by the earth and the sun. Guy likes the oratorical abilities of his interlocutor, but there is one nuance. How can you believe all this when you yourself are a Jew? Sorry, journalist has already broken the information about him and knows that the days have passed. The Bormy right Denny from such a turn panicked and began to claim that Guy published their conversation. Days put a gun on the table to be more convincing, but to make sure that the article would not come out, he put the gun in Guy's mouth. Skinheads came to the country house of fascists. There was already a crowd of other skin-headed aggressive guys. One of them, the biggest, suddenly smashed Danny young man, hurriedly responded and first hit the aggressor in the throat from the bottom of his heart, went over his face with his head. Nazis play XML. If necessary, they can easily make explosives for Danny. In the morning, they started teaching him how to shoot a rifle with a caricatured Jewish and dark-skinned family as a target. Danny gets so himself, unlike Drake's sniper boyfriend, wants to continue his relationship with Carla. The girl resisted, but eventually invited him to come over to her place today, through the window, and he did just that. Curtis, the next day, Dennis confessed Curtis that he intended to strike with the whole gang. Nazis piled into a Jewish cafe and demanded that they be served non-kosher food. After hearing the abuse, the waiter had to call the cook, who armed himself with a stick. Arguments on religion quickly turned into a fight, and the neo-Nazis heard the judge. He offered them a choice of 30 days in jail or a visit. Skinheads chose the second option, all meh or dope, until one old man started telling how during the war, A German sergeant stabbed his son with a bayonet right in front of his eyes. Blood dripped down his face. Soldiers laughed and he couldn't do anything about it. After listening to the story of the days he got angry in front of this weak man, his son was being killed, and he didn't even throw himself at the sergeant. He didn't even squeeze his eyes out. Better to die than to be like this old man. He's worse than a dead man woman. Ask Danny what he would do as a man who doesn't know what suffering is, who grew up in this dumb, prosperous country and grew up in this. They didn't do anything, just like you wouldn't do anything. Danny decided that he couldn't learn anything from these people and left the meeting. His friends showed him the explosives, after the skinheads broke into the synagogue and started destroying it. Started planting a bomb right under the pulpit, but he didn't feel comfortable when the comrades took the scroll with the Holy Scripture. He demanded not to touch the paper, but instead the Nazis started tearing and trampling the Holy Scripture. The comrades were surprised at his behavior, and Drake seemed to suspect something. When they all left the distraught days holding back, tears lifted and rolled up the scroll from Skinhead. News learned that their bomb had malfunctioned 13 minutes before the explosion. Apparently, God had helped the Jews again. The old man's story doesn't leave Day's mind in the role of the sergeant of the assassin. He introduced himself to Danny, who had taken the scroll. It turned out Danny had taken the scroll, taped it up, and cleaned it thoroughly. In addition, he tied a katana that the Jews used during prayers. The skinhead started throwing zigs and reading the Torah at the same time. He got a call from journalist Guy, who suspects that it was Danny who planted the bomb, the scumbag. Drake suddenly suggested that Danny kill the Jew. He brought him to the building where today the manse that Danny talked about at the Nazi meeting is performing. They waited until evening. Drake ordered the guy to lie on his stomach and take aim himself. He confessed that he had already killed 4 people. He took the manse to take aim but missed. Drake is sure he did it on purpose, and then noticed the talent under his shirt during the struggle. Days he shot the scumbag and escaped again. Memories from his childhood, he didn't like the fact that Jews only tolerate and sacrifice themselves. He sees God as a madman, who he has no intention of worshiping. After all, Danny ran away from the class. The fascists are going to promote their ideology to the masses by giving lectures to blacks and liberals, and Dennis will play an important role in that. The excitement made the boy throw up, and the perfectly normal girl Carly immediately. They slept together, and while Danny was in the shower, Carla found a stolen scroll. The young man demanded that she get dressed in front of the Holy Scripture and not be naked. Carla found out that the days know Hebrew, and she also wants to learn it, supposedly, to get to know her enemy better, and Danny agreed to teach her Aleph. Aleph looks like a swastika. Danny started teaching anti-Semitism, and he does it very passionately. Another duty of the day is to collect donations. One of potential patrons claims that the question of Jews is no longer relevant. The main thing is the market and money. You are Jews, you just don't realize it is possible. Probably we are all Jews. What difference? Days noticed a Jewish family and followed them. He saw himself again in the role of a German sergeant. Days went to the Jewish literature store and met there. He's going to become a Trevino. Also this summer, he marries their classmate Miriam. Days he was invited to come celebrate the Jewish New Year, and he didn't even mention his current views. The bomb test was a success. Carla, in the meantime, tries to understand Uda, and she concluded that this religion is even stranger than Christianity. Also, Danny talks so much about Jews as if he were a Jew himself, Hitler, and gay Danny took advantage of the invitation, and in the synagogue met with another classmate, Avi. He immediately called him an anti-Semite and a fascist. He had proof that Danny was a Jewish Nazi. The argument between them almost turned into a fight in the street. Miriam suddenly asked Danny to tell about Lena. Mobius turns out Miriam works in the prosecutor's office, and half of the members of the fascist XM, half of the members of the fascist cell are informants. A bunch of right-wing financiers came to the next meeting. Apparently, he was already disillusioned with this organization, so he started with the Jewish prayer and continued with arguments that Jews should be loved, which will only make them worse because hatred hardens them. The only way to exterminate this perfidious Naro once and for all is to open our arms to him. So let's say something violent. Anything act of violence. Miriam wants to save her friend Carla, has become seriously interested in Judaism, and has offered to join her in celebrating Kippur tomorrow at the synagogue. Miriam's fiancé was supposed to read the prayer, and Danny asked him to fill in because he's going to plant a bomb in the paper this night. Days he was called a Jew. Nazi and accused of murdering Manslina was interviewed about it, and the father learned terrible things about his son from TV. Danny came to the synagogue, and besides his friends, he was surprised to find Carla there. He begs the girl to leave, but she begs him not to distract her from praying Danny again. Imagined himself as a Nazi sergeant, but this time he was also a Jew who wouldn't stand still and attack the enemy. The guy went out to say a prayer. A man recognized him and wanted to call the police. There were 5 minutes left before the explosion when Danny went to his friends and confessed to planting the bomb. They needed to get everyone out as soon as possible. People in a panic left the room. Carlo was the last one to leave, and Danny decided to stay. The boy was struck by a bright flash. He was back in the school and went up the stairs. On each floor, he is greeted by a teacher and asked to stop for days. Doesn't he know there is no one up there?